Hi everyone. I am back once again after disappearing for several weeks and not doing a weekly update ever, but uh I do plan on working on that simply because I have more free time now to not only work on my writing and stuff, but to actually devote to planning these and doing them and making the whole thing happen. So, um yeah, that's the plan. I have a lot to talk about, kind of, I guess. I officially graduated. I know I had my graduation ceremony in May in Arizona, but I finished my program on June 18th, so a little over 2 weeks ago. Um, I managed to graduate with a 3.94 and keep my summa cum laude distinction for graduation. Um, and then I graduated with my two honor society entries or whatever. So my first being the National Society of Collegiate Scholars, I think, which I joined my freshman or sophomore year. I can't remember, but they are specifically for like freshman and sophomore students who are doing well early on versus waiting until the senior and junior years to join. And then the other one, Alpha Chi National Honor Society. Um, So that is amazing. The whole time leading up to the end of the program, I was just so amazed that it was actually happening and it was getting closer, and I was staying mostly on task, which is very difficult. I ended up getting a perfect score on my capstone, my research proposal for the Bachelor's of Psychology program, um, which I was surprised because I did go through and do some edits from the feedback throughout the course, but I didn't do as much as I feel like I should have. So I was very pleased with that. I managed to maintain an A for the course, which I really wasn't expecting, especially considering the way the last few months have gone out, how burnt out that I have been completely over school lately and just life in general. But aside from that, I've been spending the last few weeks trying to learn to enjoy solitude again. Um, I've been way too needy as a friend and want people to spend so much time with me all the time. And I know that there was a point in my life where I was comfortable being by myself. I would go eat at a restaurant by myself, or I would see a movie by myself. And um, I mean, it's been up and down. Sometimes it's harder than others, but it's been a long time since I've been in a place where that seemed comfortable to me. So I really have been trying to put a little bit more effort lately into learning to enjoy my solitude, and to be present, because that's very hard for me. Um, I also have been working on learning to fight my trauma responses, learning to reprogram my thoughts and to heal, because recognizing it is only one step, and actually making the changes to make that happen is what's important for the future. So it's been an eventful few weeks since I last updated y'all, but I do still want to focus a little bit on mental health stuff, and then maybe read a little bit of poetry at the end. We'll see how this is going. So I have notes, and there are little numbers to tell me what I want to be covering in order of my agenda. So I guess the first thing I wanted to talk about is um, kind of dreams, and this focus that I've had lately on maybe trying to put more effort into remembering my dreams, where I haven't ever really remembered them before, um, except for growing up, the bad dreams I was always having. And then as an adult, I typically remember dreams that are either really bad or just really weird and off the wall. But something I've noticed in my dreams a lot, like at least over the recent years, is the ones that I do remember, the bits that I remember involve familiar places, but some of them are familiar places to me now, but they're different somehow. Others are places I haven't encountered in this lifetime. So, like examples of things I see, I'll be driving in my hometown, or I'll be driving through a town that I've been in or visited, and the streets and stores and the buildings, like something about the layout or um, the businesses and stuff like is altered. It's not quite the way that I remember it or the way that it is in real life. But sometimes like there's some that it's completely different. Like this is my hometown, but it's not anything like my hometown. Like there's um not that sense of familiarity to what I know my hometown to be there. But in my dream, it's always um, familiar. So to my dream self. Um, Other things that have kind of recurred a little bit are long distance travel plans. Like there's this visit out of state to see certain cousins or family that I have kind of remembered from like various dreams over the past like months or years, but it's like either not a place where they live, or it's not family that I'm close to or family that I would be visiting. And road trips in general, like I've only driven maybe like 4 to 6 hours by myself, like, and then back the other way at a later time. And then longer road trips, like when we went to Arizona for graduation and driving back from Colorado on my honeymoon, like those were upwards of like 14 plus hours, but it was with other people slash taking turns driving and stuff. So, like the family and the places in those dreams isn't necessarily like familiar to my waking self, but in the dream it is familiar. And the last thing about that is like hangouts, like having familiar places where I tend to be, or like familiar people, familiar homes that in this life aren't familiar to me, but like I know them and that's like my place or that's my group or whatever in those dreams. I don't know how often it happens because I very rarely like remember dreams right off the bat waking up. And the ones that I do are the ones that I kind of lose the most detail about. But like these kinds of details, these are things that I remember kind of like later in the day, or maybe even not the same day. It just occurs to me or whatever. And so I think it's kind of weird. I know that there's this like idea that our subconscious like shows us things from past lives that we experience but not in this lifetime and stuff, and that's what I'm guessing all of this is. But I just kind of like am wondering if there's a connection with it, or if it's just I'm in this place where I'm exploring my spirituality and kind of like reaching out and I guess trying to understand what I think I might believe in, or just kind of like trying to do better with mindfulness and with putting my intentions out there and with manifestation and stuff. And so that's why, like, maybe that's why, like, more familiar things that are not actually familiar to me are like coming up in my dreams, because like I'm on a like a familiar path that I've been on in another life before. So yeah. Um the next thing that I kind of wanted to talk about is actually, I guess, kind of related to that because it involves like my upbringing and my childhood, um, which will, I guess, go on to create memories for whatever my next incarnation is, if I reincarnate again and go through the same process. But I've been doing some shadow work prompts and trying to do a lot of writing, beyond just writing poetry and stuff. And the first one that I did when I started was, "What are the values that you were brought up with?" And I was like, I don't not think that's very deep, is not going to get very like dark and shadowy, but learning about the values I was brought up with is like it does have like that darkness to it because of religious indoctrination and being raised to believe these things without question. So my response was in quotes good Christian values. And then I kind of like expanded on that for most of this entry, but the points were like bigotry, hypocrisy, abuse, and hatred. That abortion is a sin, and homosexuality is a sin, and sinners all go to hell. Racism, prejudiced ideology, mixing races is a sin, as is forming deep relationships with individuals of another religion, um, which is definitely something like I kind of started thinking past from a pretty young age because I've always been a friendly kid. My friends have always been like, yeah, it was a lot more friendly like growing up before I was quite as traumatized by my peers. But like, I tended to make friends like relatively easily, but we always grew up in like the poorer areas and stuff. So for the most part, like my friends were all like Hispanic or um black or like some racial minorities or um just like socioeconomic minorities and stuff. So I think that that's why it was easy to not really pick up on those values that were taught and that aren't necessarily like religious values so much as ignorant and southern and white values, I guess. um Also to tell the truth and obey all of the laws, but despite that little lies are okay. um I was taught to work hard and be an honest person, to not hurt others, to not throw the first hit, but to defend myself. um then there's like back to the more like touchy stuff like lust and self-pleasure are bad, but all of the vices should be avoided, and that is except when the authority wants to indulge, basically. um I definitely was taught growing up that we are not equal. Skin tone and socioeconomic status are just two of the ways that we judge people, and um, it's prevalent and it's taught to us from a young age. It's part of the values that many of us are raised with. That some of us are lucky enough to like be able to counter or have things in our life that counter that, but not everybody is. Um, oh, and the last one, as far as the mixed signal values, I guess, would be hate the sin, not the sinner, which is just an empty statement because we pick and choose which parts to follow and which parts to ignore. Um, and underneath that, I kind of wrote out what my kind of top values are, and that's those are be kind, be generous, be compassionate, be loving, show grace, and be thankful. Um, I kind of want to go ahead and bring it to an end. I think some of the other stuff I was going to talk about, I'm going to save for another video because it doesn't quite relate as much to kind of what I've talked about as I feel like it would to belong here. So, um, in my last video, I ended with a poem that I was talking about writing on my leg when I was driving through New Mexico because I wasn't ready to say it out loud, but I needed to get it out. And the poem that I read was actually not the poem with those lines in it. And I realized that when I came across this little, like, you can't even see it's so bright, but it's literally this little area right here. I saw that and I was like, no, that is what I wrote on my leg. And um, I don't know, I don't know what I want it to be yet. I've written a lot in the past few weeks, in the past few months, and I've got a lot that I know that I want to go back and work on a little bit. I've got some things that I think I'm ready to start maybe working with in like with adding a beat and making it kind of more of spoken word type uh performance or whatever. But This I'm not quite sure what it is and what it's going to be, but it's to me it was very profound. I believe in science and I believe in madness. I believe in magic strong enough to burst through the darkest sadness. And that's it. Like that's all of it. I think that it's going to be a really great poem, but I just want to take my time with it and work on it when it feels right and not try to make it into something because it's there. So I will hopefully be back soon. I will have another update in the next week, fingers crossed. Um, Simply because I'm out of school and I have the time to do it. So there's not an excuse not to. But thanks for watching. Y'all have a great week.